Deep in the heart of the Graystone mountain, hidden among the fog-choked trees, lies a building few dare speak of. For decades, locals have whispered of the place, their voices hushed, as if speaking too loud might draw its attention. The building, once a grand sanatorium, now stands rotting, its windows like hollowed eyes staring blankly into the void of the mountain. It was said to have been abandoned in the early 1900s after a series of unexplained disappearances. What began as a refuge for those suffering from mysterious ailments quickly turned into a house of nightmares. The patients, or what remained of them, were never seen again. The doctors vanished without a trace. Despite the warnings, 5 hikers looking for a thrill decided to explore the building one gloomy autumn afternoon. As they trekked up the narrow, twisting path leading to the peak, a deep, unnatural silence engulfed them. The usual sounds of the forest, rustling leaves, distant bird calls, were swallowed by the oppressive quiet, as if the mountain itself was holding its breath. The air grew thick with the scent of decay as they approached the towering structure. The building loomed before them, its once white walls now stained with years of neglect, vines curling through shattered windows, and a heavy, oppressive feeling hung in the air. As they stepped inside, the temperature plummeted, their breath visible in the air despite the warmth outside. The foyer was vast, with remnants of old furniture scattered about, dust covering every surface. Faint whispers echoed from the distant hallways, but no one was there. "We should leave," Emily, the youngest of the group, whispered, her voice trembling. But the others laughed it off, convinced it was just the wind. They wandered deeper into the building, their footsteps echoing ominously. The walls were covered in strange, indecipherable markings that seemed to shift and writhe if you stared too long. The deeper they ventured, the more unsettling the place became. Shadows danced along the walls, their shapes not quite matching the flicker of their flashlights. In one of the rooms, they found an old operating table, rusted and covered in what looked like dried blood. The air was heavy with the metallic scent, making them gag. One of the hikers, Greg, picked up an old photograph lying on the floor. It was a picture of the building taken decades ago with a group of doctors standing outside. Their faces were blurred, as if smeared by an unseen hand. Suddenly, a cold draft blew through the room, slamming the door shut behind them. Emily screamed, and the lights flickered out. Panic set in as they fumbled in the darkness, trying to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. A faint hum filled the air, growing louder by the second, like the droning of 1,000 bees. And then the voices began. They were faint at first, soft whispers barely audible, but soon they grew louder, more insistent. "Get out, leave, they're coming." The voices overlapped, some pleading, others laughing maniacally. The group huddled together, terrified, as they felt the air grow colder around them. Greg shined his flashlight toward the far end of the room and froze. Standing there, bathed in shadows, was a figure. Its body was twisted and contorted, the face hidden beneath a tattered hood, but its eyes, burning hollow eyes, were locked onto them. Slowly, it began to move forward, its limbs jerking unnaturally with each step. Emily screamed again, yanking on the door with all her strength until, finally, it burst open. The group stumbled out, but the halls had changed. What was once a long, narrow corridor had warped into a labyrinth of endless doors and dead ends. The walls pulsed as if alive, a sickly glow emanating from the cracks. They ran, hearts pounding, but no matter which way they turned, they kept ending up in the same place, back in front of the room with the twisted figure, which now stood closer than before. "That's not possible," Greg whispered, eyes wide with horror. "It can't be real." But it was. Suddenly, the floor beneath them began to crack and split, revealing a dark, bottomless chasm. From the depths, long, bony hands reached out, clawing at the air, pulling at their feet. The voices grew louder, screaming now. "Join us! Stay forever!" One by one, they fell into the abyss, their screams swallowed by the endless dark, except for Emily. She managed to grab onto a jagged piece of the floor, dangling above the chasm, her grip slipping. The twisted figure knelt beside her, its face inches from hers. It whispered in a voice that sounded like the wind howling through dead trees. "You'll never leave." With a final, desperate cry, Emily lost her grip and plummeted into the darkness. The building remains on the mountain to this day, untouched, abandoned. Locals say that on quiet nights, when the wind is just right, you can still hear the screams of the hikers, trapped in the shadows of Graystone Peak, forever lost in the whispering corridors of the haunted building.